Assalamu alaikum. Today we are going to discuss moderation analysis. In our previous video we discussed mediation process or mediation analysis, and we learned that in our daily life, private life as well as work environment, there are several moderating and mediating variables which either support or change the relationships between our x variables and y variables. So today we shall discuss moderation analysis using hierarchical regression in SPSS. Both mediators and moderators are the third variables which actually change the cause and effect relationship between x and y variables. This is a common experience of every human being in private life as well as work life. Further, the titles of mediation and moderation are the concepts which are used to explain the diversity or variety of factors as well as the differences in the operational trajectory or in the operations of moderators and mediators in affecting x and y relations. For example, teacher, an x variable, teaches students, y variable, but effective relation is dependent on teaching style, a mediator, further class environment, a moderator, and likewise many other factors including students' motivation and so on. The role of mediators, as we discussed in our last video, is that the impact of x is transmitted to y through the mediator, while moderator is suggested to work via a computed variable or interaction term commonly known, which is added to the regression process as second model x, w and interaction term, three variables on dependent variable, to the first model where we place independent variable x and w and the dependent variable y. How do we conduct the moderation analysis, or how do we apply the moderation procedure? Following are the steps from start to end. From computing, number one, both predictor and the moderator are centered. Centered simply means that we subtract each value of x and y variables from their respective averages. Second, create the product. Once we have centered the variable x and variable w, the results centered x variable and centered w variable both are used to produce the product term or interaction term centered self-confidence multiplied with centered designation, which we are using as a moderator. Then run the hierarchical multiple regression with model 1. In model 1 we shall place self-confidence and designation as predictors, while in model 2 we will add interaction term as a third variable. So we shall proceed further to the point 4. Let's go to the SPSS and do the same things we have discussed. This data matrix is the same we have used in our last video to compute mediation. First step is to compute or centralize both the X variable self-confidence and the moderator designation. Compute variable, for example, and we call it CEN center SC2. I am using 2 because I have already computed these variables without 2, and we shall use them for our analysis, final analysis. This is for example. So here we have to place the variable, X variable, self-confidence, minus there the average of self-confidence, the average of this variable, and that I have already computed, which is 4.21, and OK. And here you can see that center self-confidence has been computed. So likewise we have to compute the second variable DSG2 by placing the variable minus the X bar or average of the same variable and click OK. And here you can see the centralized values of designation. And the next step was to compute the interaction term. So we have to multiply SC we call it interaction SC and DSG, and it will be computed with the help of what? Centralized self-confidence multiplied by centralized designation, and we click OK. And here comes the third variable. So that is the interaction term. So we can now compute the moderation impact on the relationship between self-confidence and employee performance using the instructions by the statisticians, regression analysis, linear, and we have to use we should go back to here, that we said in third point, run the hierarchical multiple regression with model 1 containing self-confidence and designation with EP as the dependent variable, and then go to model 2 where add the interaction term we have computed. So analyze regression. First we place the self-confidence in the independent variable column, employee performance as the dependent variable, and the designation. So that is the content of first model. Now we shall go to the second model next and put the product or interaction term in the second model. Now the second model includes 3 variables: self-confidence, designation, and the interaction term. In statistics, we have to click R squared change between 2 models, model 1 and model 2. and continue. Okay. These are the outputs. Model summary. R square shows that in model 1 the change in the dependent variable was 0.41, while in model 2, when interaction term was added to the model, the R square, or the change in the dependent variable, has jumped from 41% to 49%. I have produced these results in the slideshow. So here we can see and visualize things better than in the output of SPSS. That is the table showing how the self-confidence and designation were centralized, and these are the computations taken from the same data matrix. Now let's proceed with the results. That is the model of moderation analysis. We shall come back to this afterwards. So the first output in the SPSS, after implementing the procedure for moderation analysis, we get the model summary. Here we can see that in model 1 the value was 0.41, while in model 2, after the insertion of interaction term, the result has changed and the impact has increased. Likewise, the ANOVA table, which gives statistics about the strength of the regression model, we can see that both the values of the models, model 1 and 2, are significant, with F values which are far greater than the required score of 20. So it confirms that the regression model is robust, and it really explains the interaction between the predictors and the dependent variable. Next, here we shall define or discuss the role of interaction term and other variables in the moderation process. We can see that the result of interaction term is highly significant. The t-score is far greater than required 1.96, and the beta weight or the impact is 0.605, which is huge. Now, according to the rule, if interaction term is positively significant, it implies that when designation goes from 0 to 1, it increases the impact of X on Y. And if it is negatively significant, then every time designation changes from 0 to 1, there is a decrease in the effect of X on Y. Now, it means that if the interaction term, if the result of interaction term, and statistically they call it C path or C score, if it is positively significant, and we can see that the beta weight and T, all these scores are positive, so result is positive, and similarly the results are also significant. The p-value is far less than the required critical value of 0.05. So the results of C or the interaction term are both positive as well as significant. Therefore, the decision will be that coefficient of interaction term is positively significant. Therefore, as per rule, when designation goes up from 0 to 1, it increases the impact of self-confidence on employee performance. So we can see that moderation procedure is theoretically exactly the same thing, referring to a third variable which changes the weight of x variable while affecting the dependent variable. So that is all about the moderation procedure, and in our next video we shall start using both mediation and moderation together, and the next video will be about moderated mediation. So for the time being, that is the end of the lecture, and see you in next video. Khuda Hafiz.